Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment when silence speaks louder than words, when your absence shouts what your presence could never make him hear. The most powerful move you can ever make is not to argue, not to beg, not to explain, but to erase him from your life so completely that he feels the void everywhere he turns. When you stop giving him the comfort of your energy, he doesn't just notice it, he regrets ever taking you for granted. And that regret, that ache of losing someone unforgettable is what will drive him to come running back. And ladies, let's talk about something powerful, something that changes the entire dynamic between you and the man who underestimated your worth. There comes a point in your life where you have to stop proving yourself, stop explaining your value, and stop waiting for someone to realize what they had before it's too late. That point is the moment you decide to erase him from your life, not with bitterness, not with loud declarations, but with quiet, undeniable certainty that you deserve better. And it's in that silence, in that complete removal of your energy, that he feels the shock of losing something extraordinary. And you see, men don't always learn through words. You can tell him you're hurt, you can tell him you're tired, you can tell him you need him to change, but oftentimes those words fall on deaf ears. He doesn't feel the urgency until he feels the absence. An absence, when paired with your determination, is the loudest sound he will ever hear. When you erase him from your life, it's not about games. It's not about pretending you don't care while secretly hoping he notices. It's about reclaiming your dignity and cutting off the oxygen he has been breathing at your expense. And think about it. When someone has constant access to you, when they know they can reach out, when they know you'll answer, they take it for granted. It becomes their normal. They stop valuing it because they've grown accustomed to your presence as if it's permanent. But the second you pull that away, the second he goes to call you and realizes you're not there, the second he scrolls through his phone and notices the silence from your end, that's when regret begins to creep in. Not because you said it, not because you begged, but because he can feel it in the pit of his stomach that you've slipped beyond his grasp. And let's be honest, erasing him is not easy. It requires discipline. It requires you to sit with discomfort and resist the urge to reach out. But here's the truth. Every time you choose not to break the silence, every time you choose not to give him the comfort of knowing he still has you, you are rebuilding yourself. You are shifting the power back into your own hands. This is not about punishing him. It's about liberating yourself. It's about showing yourself that your value is not tied to whether or not he validates you. And the irony is, when you finally stop chasing, stop reminding, stop proving, that's when he feels the loss most deeply. Because men are wired to pursue. They thrive on the challenge. When everything comes easy, they don't chase it. But the second you pull away, the second you reclaim your independence, he starts to feel something he never expected. Fear. Fear that he lost someone irreplaceable. Fear that he underestimated your strength. Fear that while he was busy being complacent, you found a version of yourself that doesn't need him anymore. And erase him by living, erase him by thriving, erase him by filling your days with passion, purpose, and people who light up your world. Stop leaving gaps in your life that you expect him to fill. Fill them yourself. When he sees that you've become unreachable, not just physically, but emotionally, when he sees that his presence is no longer required for your happiness, that's when regret eats at him. Not the superficial regret of missing someone's company, but the deep regret of realizing he was careless with something extraordinary. But here's where it gets even more powerful. When you make him feel erased, you aren't just sending him a message, you are sending yourself one. You are telling yourself, I am enough without him. I don't need his call, his validation, or his attention to feel alive. And that message is life-changing. It's the foundation for true self-worth. Because when he finally comes running back, when he finally realizes what he lost, you're not waiting there in desperation. You're standing tall, confident, and in control of what happens next. And he will test you. He'll try to slide back in with casual messages, with small attempts to reclaim the comfort he once had. But the difference now is that you see through it. You're no longer hanging on his every word. You've erased the version of yourself that once tolerated crumbs, and in its place stands a woman who commands respect. That shift is magnetic. That shift is what draws him back, because deep down, he realizes he has to earn his place again. And think about the energy you're giving off when you truly erase someone. It's not bitterness, it's not revenge, it's freedom, it's a glow that comes from knowing your worth is not tied to his choices. And men feel that energy. They sense when you've moved on from needing them. It unsettles them because suddenly the control they thought they had slips away. That's when the tables turn. That's when he begins to regret, to rethink, to replay the moments he took you for granted. And he'll wonder what you're doing, who you're with, whether you still think of him at all. And that uncertainty will eat at him far more than your words ever could. Because the truth is, silence and absence speak louder than confrontation. They pierce the ego in a way that conversations never can. You're not arguing, you're not explaining, you're not pleading, you're just gone. And that is what makes him restless. That is what makes him remember. But remember this, it's not about making him regret. It's about elevating yourself so high that his regret becomes a natural consequence of your growth. The focus is not on whether he comes back, but on how much stronger you become when you no longer tether your happiness to him. Because by the time he realizes what he lost, you will have already found what you gained: clarity, strength, and freedom. And here's the paradox. When you reach that place where you no longer need him, that's exactly when he needs you most. He'll come running back, not because you begged, but because you became unavailable. He'll feel the weight of his choices when he realizes he's erased from the very life he thought he could always dip in and out of. That's when regret transforms into desperation. That's when he finally sees the cost of underestimating you. And so make him feel erased, not with anger, not with spite, but with quiet confidence. Remove his access to your world, reclaim your energy, and watch how quickly the story changes. Because the truth is, when you rise into your full power, when you stop allowing yourself to be an option, you become unforgettable. And the man who thought he could replace you will learn the hardest lesson of all. Losing you was the biggest mistake he ever made. And when that realization hits him, it won't be in one dramatic moment. It will come in waves. At first, he'll brush it off, convincing himself that you'll eventually reach out. He'll tell himself you've always been there before, so why would this time be any different? But as the days stretch on and the silence lingers, doubt creeps in. That doubt becomes a shadow that follows him everywhere. He'll start to notice little things, how quiet his phone is, how your name no longer pops up, how the energy he once fed on is now gone. And that void will grow heavier with each passing day. And what he doesn't realize is that while he is sinking into confusion, you are rising into clarity. You are no longer waiting for him to notice you because you are too busy noticing yourself. You begin to appreciate the mornings where your peace isn't interrupted by mixed signals. You discover the strength that comes from handling your life without his inconsistency. You embrace the beauty of being able to breathe again without the weight of his unpredictability pressing on your chest. That's the kind of power that cannot be faked. It's the power that comes when you stop needing someone who never valued you properly. And this power is magnetic, not because you're trying to pull him back, but because it radiates from within. Men sense when a woman has detached. They can feel when their grip has loosened. It unsettles them because it forces them to confront the truth that they were never as secure in your life as they believed. He will look at you differently, not because you changed for him, but because you stopped making him the center of your world. That shift, that redirection of energy creates a gravitational pull that makes him restless. And imagine him going through his routine, trying to distract himself, trying to pretend he doesn't notice. But deep down, he does. He notices everything. He notices how your absence makes his days feel duller. He notices how the validation he once casually received from you is no longer there. And the truth is, he'll start to miss not just your presence, but the version of himself he felt when he was with you. Because you gave him a reflection of greatness, and without you, that reflection disappears. And then while he's busy missing what he lost, you're creating something even greater. You're building a life that isn't defined by what he gives or withholds. You're true. Sing yourself in ways you may not have before. That's the true beauty of erasing someone. You make room for yourself again. Your passions resurface. Your laughter becomes genuine. Your joy stops depending on his mood or his attention. That's when you realize that what felt like a loss was actually the greatest gift, the chance to rebuild yourself stronger than ever. But let's talk about the other side, the moment he finally tries to come back. It won't be grand at first. It'll start small, with a message that seems innocent, like he's just checking in. He might say he was thinking of you, or that he misses your voice. He'll try to slip back into your life as if nothing happened. But you'll know the truth. You'll recognize that what he's really feeling is the sting of being erased, the discomfort of no longer being the priority. And here's where your strength shines the brightest. You're no longer waiting for that message. You're no longer hanging on to every word. By the time he tries to return, you've already built a version of yourself that doesn't need him anymore. And that's why the power dynamic shifts completely. Because when someone knows they can lose you, when they see that you are capable of removing them from your life without hesitation, it forces them to respect you in a way they never did before. Respect is born from boundaries, from the courage to walk away when you're not valued. And nothing communicates boundaries more powerfully than erasing someone's access to you. And this doesn't mean you're cold or unfeeling. It means you've grown. It means you've learned that love without respect is never enough. It means you're no longer willing to shrink yourself to keep someone else comfortable. And ironically, that very strength is what makes him crave your presence again. He'll remember the softness you gave, the kindness you showed, the way you made him feel alive. But this time, he'll understand it was never guaranteed. This time, he'll realize that access to your heart has to be earned. And while he's wrestling with regret, you're stepping into freedom. You're waking up each day knowing you hold the pen to your own story. You're no longer cast as the supporting role in his narrative. You are the lead in your own. That mindset is unshakable. That mindset transforms you from someone who once tolerated inconsistency into someone who commands loyalty. And picture the moment when he truly feels it, that gut-wrenching recognition that you've moved on. Maybe he sees you out living your life, glowing with a happiness he thought only he could give. Maybe he hears about your accomplishments, your growth, your joy. That's when regret cuts the deepest, because he realizes you didn't just erase him, you upgraded. You took the energy he wasted and reinvested it into yourself. That kind of transformation can't be ignored. And then here's what makes this even more profound. Once you learn how to erase someone who doesn't value you, you'll never go back to tolerating less again. You've shown yourself what's possible when you put yourself first. You've experienced the strength that comes from silence, the dignity that comes from walking away, the peace that comes from refusing to chase. That lesson stays with you forever. And any man who tries to step into your world from this point on will feel that standard. He'll know that you're not a woman who can be toyed with, because you've already proven you can erase someone without looking back. And that kind of standard doesn't just make him regret. It commands the respect of everyone who encounters you. It sets the tone for the kind of love you'll accept moving forward. Because once you've tasted the freedom of no longer begging for someone's attention, you'll never lower yourself again. You'll never settle for being an option when you know you deserve to be the priority. And so let him feel erased. Let him live with the silence that once terrified you. Let him taste the emptiness that comes when he no longer has access to your world. And while he's wrestling with regret, you'll be thriving in a life that feels full, rich, and entirely yours. Because the truth is, erasing him isn't just about making him regret. It's about showing yourself that you were always enough, even when he couldn't see it. And once you know that, you'll never let anyone make you forget it again. And then once you know that, you'll never let anyone make you forget it again. Because the moment you erase him from your life, you begin to notice something extraordinary. You're lighter. You're no longer carrying the weight of hoping, waiting, analyzing, or questioning. That heaviness that used to sit in your chest every time he pulled away, every time he went silent, every time he gave you less than you deserved, it disappears. And in its place, you find a freedom you hadn't felt in so long. A freedom that whispers, this is who you really are without the chains of someone else's neglect. And that freedom becomes addictive. You start to see how much energy you used to waste worrying about him. Energy that could have been poured into your passions, your friendships, your growth. Now, every ounce of that energy is redirected back into you. You feel it when you wake up in the morning. Your thoughts are clearer. You feel it when you walk into a room. You carry yourself differently, no longer weighed down by insecurity. You feel it when you look in the mirror. You don't see a woman waiting to be chosen. You see a woman who has already chosen herself. And that's what shakes him to his core, because when he looks back, he doesn't see the woman who once clung to his mixed signals. He sees someone transformed, someone radiant, someone untouchable. He'll start to wonder, was she always this strong and I just didn't see it? Or did my absence create this version of her? And the truth is, both are correct. You always had that strength within you, but the moment you erased him, you unlocked it fully. And understand this, erasing someone isn't about being heartless, it's about being fearless. It's about choosing to walk away from what diminishes you so you can rise into what empowers you. And that courage leaves a mark, not just on your life, but on his. Because while you're out there reclaiming your joy, he's left to face the silence he created. He's left to sit with the truth that the woman who once gave him so much has taken it all back. And there will be nights when he lies awake replaying memories of you. He'll remember the way your laughter filled the room, the way your energy made everything feel alive, the way your presence gave him comfort he didn't appreciate at the time. And in those moments, regret will sink its claws into him, not because he simply misses you, but because he realizes the opportunity he squandered. He'll recognize that while he was playing games, you were genuine. While he was half-hearted, you were all in. While he was careless, you were intentional. And now that balance is gone. But here's the beauty. While he's tangled in his regret, you're not waiting. You're building, you're thriving, you're surrounding yourself with people who see your worth without hesitation. You're chasing dreams that had nothing to do with him. You're laughing louder, loving deeper, and living freer than you ever thought possible. That's what makes erasing someone so powerful. It doesn't just remove them, it restores you. And ironically, the very moment he realizes he wants back in is often the moment you've already moved beyond needing him. That's when he feels the sting of true loss. Because it's one thing to know someone has stepped away, but it's another to realize they've outgrown you. That's the regret that lingers. That's the regret that haunts. He'll come running back, not just because he misses you, but because he knows deep down that he may find another you. But by then, everything has shifted. You no longer see him as the center of your universe. You no longer crave his approval or his attention. You've built such a strong foundation within yourself that his presence or absence no longer defines your happiness. That's when you realize that erasing him was never about making him regret. It was about teaching yourself how to rise. And then rising is exactly what you've done. Look at how far you've come already. You went from waiting by the phone to forgetting it. You went from second-guessing his words to trusting your own intuition. You went from hoping he'd change to realizing you never needed him to. That's not weakness, that's evolution. That's the kind of growth that can't be undone. And think about this. Every time you chose not to text him, every time you chose not to answer, every time you chose silence over settling, you weren't just erasing him, you were rewriting your story. You were teaching yourself discipline, self-control, and resilience. You were showing yourself that love is not about clinging, it's about standing tall. And that lesson will carry you through every future relationship, every challenge, every season of your life. And then while you're living in that strength, don't be surprised when he tries harder. Don't be surprised when he starts showing up with effort he never gave before. Because the moment he realizes you've erased him, he'll scramble to reappear. He'll call, he'll text, he'll try to remind you of the connection you once had. But you'll know better. You'll know that connection wasn't lost because of you. It was lost because he never honored it. And that knowledge keeps you steady, keeps you powerful, keeps you free. And freedom is the reward for choosing yourself. Freedom is the gift you give yourself when you stop waiting for someone else to realize your value. And that freedom is what makes you radiant, magnetic, unstoppable. It's what makes him regret. But more importantly, it's what makes you rise. And when you rise, everything changes. The world looks different. Opportunities appear where before there were only obstacles. Love flows into your life in new ways. Love from friends, from family, from passions, and eventually from someone who doesn't need to be erased because he knows how to treasure you from the start. But the foundation of it all begins with you making the bold decision to walk away from what doesn't serve you. And that's the secret most people never learn. Regret isn't something you force in others. It's something they feel when they realize they no longer have access to someone who finally realized her own worth. And that's the exact moment where you win. Not because you made him chase, not because you played games, but because you became untouchable in your confidence, your strength, and your freedom. And so let him feel erased. Let him carry the regret. Let him come running back if he chooses. But by then, you'll already be so far ahead in your journey that his regret will only be a reminder of how much you've grown, how much you've gained, and how powerful it is to choose yourself above all else. And so let him feel erased. Let him carry the regret. Let him come running back if he chooses. But by then, you'll already be so far ahead in your journey that his regret will only be a reminder of how much you've grown, how much you've gained, and how powerful it is to choose yourself above all else. And because the real beauty in all of this isn't about whether he comes back, it's about how you transform when you stop waiting for him to. Think about that for a moment. How many hours, days, months did you waste hoping he would wake up and finally see what was in front of him? How often did you silence your own needs just to keep the peace, just to keep him close, just to avoid the fear of losing him? And how many times did you give him the benefit of the doubt only to be left with disappointment? You've lived through that cycle, and now you know that the only way to break it is to stop playing the game altogether. To erase him is to erase the version of yourself that's settled. And that is where the power lies. When you stop making room for his half-hearted effort, you create space for your own wholeness. You create space for people who don't hesitate, for opportunities that don't require begging, for experiences that fill you rather than drain you. You begin to see that your value was never tied to whether he stayed or left. It was always tied to the love and respect you were willing to give yourself. That shift is monumental. It changes the way you carry yourself, the way you speak, the way you interact with the world. Suddenly, you're not the woman who waits, you're the woman who moves. And movement is everything. Movement is progress. Movement is momentum. When you choose to move on, you send a signal to the universe that you're ready for more, that you're ready for better. And the universe responds. Doors open that once seemed locked. Connections form that you never expected. Life begins to flow in ways that feel aligned and fulfilling, all because you stopped anchoring yourself to someone who refused to rise with you. And here's what he doesn't expect. He thinks you'll linger. He thinks you'll hold on forever because that's what you've done before. But when you finally erase him, when you finally close the chapter without announcing it, it shocks him. It disrupts his sense of security. It forces him to question himself in ways he never imagined. He'll ask himself why you stopped reaching out, why you no longer seem affected, why you don't react to his breadcrumbs anymore. And that's when regret sets in, not in the dramatic, cinematic way, but in the quiet moments of his life when he realizes you're no longer there to soften the edges. And regret, it is a slow burn. It doesn't hit all at once. It creeps in during the silence of his nights, in the emptiness of his mornings, in the spaces where your presence once existed. He'll remember the way you supported him, the way you believed in him, the way you brought light to his life. And while he's stuck in those memories, you'll be busy creating new ones, memories that don't include him at all. That's the true power of erasing someone. You're not just gone from his life. You're fully alive in your own. And as you continue to build that life, something incredible happens. You start to realize that the very thing you feared, losing him, was actually the key to gaining yourself. You no longer measure your worth by how much he gives or withholds. You measure it by the way you've learned to stand on your own, the way you've embraced your independence, the way you've chosen peace over chaos. That realization is priceless. It becomes the foundation for a life where you never again allow someone else to dictate your happiness. And let's be clear, this isn't about becoming hard or closed off. This isn't about swearing off love or building walls so high no one can climb them. This is about discernment. This is about knowing the difference between someone who truly values you and someone who simply enjoys the convenience of you. When you've erased the one who didn't value you, you make room for the one who will. And you'll know the difference immediately because you've trained yourself not to accept less than what you deserve. And imagine how different your future looks from here. Imagine walking into new connections with confidence instead of fear. Imagine knowing that your happiness doesn't hinge on anyone else's behavior. Imagine carrying the calm assurance that you are whole, regardless of who chooses to stay or go. That's the gift you've given yourself by erasing him. That's the strength you've uncovered by refusing to settle. And then while you're living in that strength, don't be surprised when he tries harder than ever to find his way Don't be surprised when he realizes that what he lost wasn't just a relationship, it was an entire world, a source of light, a presence that made him feel alive in ways he didn't appreciate at the time. He'll come with apologies, with promises, with words he never spoke before. But by then, you'll be standing in a place so powerful that his regret will feel small compared to the greatness you've built within yourself. And because the truth is, you don't erase someone to make them chase. You erase them to free yourself. And in that freedom, you discover that regret is not your burden to carry, it's his. He's the one who has to live with the knowledge that he underestimated you. He's the one who has to face the reality that he lost someone unforgettable. He's the one who has to watch you glow without him. That weight doesn't belong to you anymore. And then every step you take away from him reinforces the message that you are unshakable. You're not waiting by the phone. You're not refreshing his messages. You're not wondering what he's doing. You're living. You're thriving. You're elevating. That's what makes him regret. That's what makes him restless. But more importantly, that's what makes you unstoppable. And so when he finally feels the full impact of being erased, when he finally understands the cost of taking you for granted, remember this: you didn't lose anything. You gained everything. You gained strength, clarity, peace, and a life that no longer revolves around someone else's inconsistency. And that is worth more than any half-hearted love he could ever have given you. And because the real victory isn't that he regrets, it's that you no longer do. You no longer regret the time you wasted, the energy you gave, or the chances you offered, because all of it led you here to this moment where you finally understand your power. And once you've felt that power so you've embraced the freedom of erasing someone who didn't deserve you. There's no going back.